How are you getting on? Welcome to the On Your Own Time podcast. I'm your host, Declan Toland, and thanks for taking some time out of your day to join me. Each episode, I'll be chatting with people from all walks of life, from elite athletes and coaches to personal trainers, members of the Defence Forces, business owners, community leaders, and everyday people with incredible stories to tell. We'll talk about challenges, successes, lessons learned, and the experiences that shape who we are. So whether you're on the road, out for a run, or relaxing at home, settle in and enjoy the conversation. Because every story has something to teach us. This is the On Your Own Time podcast. Now, let's hear their story on their own time.
Joined with a very interesting man here today. Big Westmeath fan. Anybody lives local around that lawn or anybody in the Defence Forces knows this fella. So Noel, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I do a lot of things. Be too much at times. I'm Noel, Poynton, Defence Forces member, 20 years, currently in the Air Corps, senior NCO, and huge interest in the Gaelic Athletic Association. The detriment to my own peace of mind sometimes. Yeah, and I'm also I've also been sober for near 17 years as well, which is a huge part of my story.
Yeah, and we had a brief talk about this beforehand as well. So I could spend 5 hours talking to you about all the interesting topics you have. But what we do is we go back to who you are and where you're from first. So whereabouts are you from?
I grew up in a small little townland in North Westmeath called Turin, which is about, I'd say, 4 or 5 miles from Delvin. So Delvin would be the local village. So I just tell people I'm from Delvin because all my people are from Delvin. It's easier. I don't even think Turin is on the map.
Okay, never heard of it before.
Yeah, exactly. It's a small little townland, great place, full of great people. I have some very fond memories growing up there as a child. Great hurling club, great proud hurling club. 103 years in existence. Granddad was a huge part of that. Father was a huge part of that club, and I played hurling there for many years. Yeah, so I grew up in Delvin, like Delvin village, very interesting place. If anyone that's into history, in 1918 there was a book wrote called The Valley of the Squinting Windows. Some say it was wrote about the village. In reality, you could take that book and apply it to any rural village at the time, and you would have found characters.
Okay.
Very controversial, and it's a famous book. So if you want to go down on a deep dive, Brinsley McNamara's the author. Very interesting story.
And what was it like growing up in a small village?
Tommy Tiernan described Navan once as the waiting room of a mental institution.
Okay.
You don't know who's mad or who's minding something. Delvin's a bit like that. And that's not that's not to run Delvin down. Delvin has character. Delvin has mystery. And there was plenty of characters when I was growing up around Delvin. And it was a great place to grow up, in my opinion, But I mean, it's a heavy drinking town. Not so much nowadays, I don't think. But when I was growing up, there was 5 or 6 pubs in it. And, you collected your check from the building sites or from, if you had a job, you collected your check in the pub, you cashed your check in the pub. And that's, that kind of culture existed in the late 90s, early 90s, more so when I started drinking. Yeah, so it was an interesting place to grow up. I have some very, very fond memories. And I hope someday, I live in Athlone here the last couple of years. I hope someday to return to that area or that village. Because, like I said, it has character. It has its own kind of identity.
I don't know what the story is. Like all the villages around Ireland, they've always have more pubs and shops and so on. So you came from a village. The only time I'm in a village is when I'm driving through it.
Yeah.
Okay, so and all you see is there's a pub. But for you to live in it, so to be around it, like, do you think has it changed much in terms of the younger generation?
Oh, well, the country has changed. The younger generation, like the nightclub scene is completely dead.
Okay.
Like we were so lucky that we discovered, we got to experience the last island of beauty. It's like the nightclub scene, the late 90s, early 90s. Like that's completely gone. Kids nowadays will never experience that nightclub, energy, everything that went with it. So that has changed. But also the culture has changed around people's relationship with alcohol. At one time when I was 18 or 19, like, if somebody mentioned they were going to the gym, you'd just have a laugh. Like, what are
Okay.
you talking about going to the gym? But now it's a natural thing. Kids nowadays have gym membership before they'd have a local pub. Do you know what I mean?
And back then as well, like you're talking about hurling. Would you be more of a hurling man now than a gym man?
Oh yes. Well, I wasn't really a good hurler. Say that out loud. I was very small, but I loved the game. I could play hurling, but I wasn't, county standard, or I wouldn't be a starter in the senior team. And I just loved the game. I was lucky enough to play Gaelic football for the Downs at a time when the Downs was going through a development. I remember before they had the clubhouse and the stand, and before they had, I think there might have been a small pitch and a big pitch. And the current kit man in the Westmeath GA set up there, Paddy Walsh, who I've had the blessings of working closely with for the last couple of months there. Paddy was our underage coach, and he used to drive down and throw a load of us into the back of a van and bring us off playing Gaelic football. So I have some very, very fond memories. I won an under-14 championship with the Downs in 2002, and there's a number of guys on that starting 15 that have actually passed away, even though it's only
Oh.
2002. If Darren Price was the captain, he was going to be the next Desi Dolan. Like, he was a great footballer, Darren, great professional. Even at a young age, like, his standards were very high on 14. Johnny Fitzsimons, who I went to national school with, was wing half back on that team. Unfortunately, died by suicide when he was very young. Johnny was a good egg. And then Brendan Devaney also died overseas as well, in hotels, somewhere on his way over to Australia or back from Australia. And then you, of course, Niall Keegan as well, was cornerback on that team. He jumped off the diving board in Mullingar, banged his head. So I think about that team, and it's remarkable. It's 2002, like, those guys. I often think about them when you see the black and amber jersey. We had some great times playing Gaelic football, but I would have leaned more towards hurling because of where we grew up. Like, there was no Gaelic football. If you bounced to Gaelic football in McCabe Park in Turin, you'd be liable to get barred from it. Like, you know what I mean? There was zero football.
And it was only soccer.
Soccer, man. Blasphemy. You'd be called out from the
Okay.
pulpit on Sunday Mass, you would. There was a soccer team in the late 90s. My father and my uncle and a load of guys came together and they formed Cloughan Celtic.
Okay.
And they won the Meath District League as well. And it's crumbled up before they got an opportunity to kind of establish a club there. But that had the potential to be something very, very positive, because in the off season from the GAA, you had a massive catchment area there in Cloughan.
Okay.
You had, at the time, you would have had Turin, Clonkill, everybody from the Downs, and probably a few people near Colucan as well, because Harney United wasn't established at the time. So that had the potential to be something really cool. And we had a great couple of seasons that time following Cloughan Celtic in the off season. My uncle always says that the reason that Turin got to the intermediate final in 1997 was because they were all playing soccer in the off season,
Yeah.
and they were all just that bit fitter.
Yeah, that's mad. And so move on to joining the Defence Forces. So what inspired you to join the Defence Forces?
Well, it's a family business, Decky. I mean, in 2006, I was in a bad way with the drink, like a real bad way. I mean, I was drinking almost 3 to 4 times a week, partying, everything else that goes with it, and staying up all night. I had a good job at the time. I was working for Fox's Fruit and Veg in Mullingar. A little shameless plug there for anyone that's listening. Get your fresh fruit off the vise. And it was an ideal job for me, because I started work at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. Sometimes I'd often leave a house party Sunday night, straight up on the lorry. You'd go and work. You'd be finished work around 2 or 3 o'clock on the Monday. You were off Tuesday, so you could do Monday club if you wanted. Died all day Tuesday. Wednesday was 4 a.m. to about 11. Thursday was 8 a.m. to about 1. And Friday was 4 to 4. So it was a dream job for someone who was, and I was eating all the fresh fruit in the world, even though I was drinking heavily.
Balanced diet?
Yeah. And then there was a conversation about me heading to America, because I was I wasn't really in much trouble at the time, but I seemed to, not that I caused a lot of trouble, but I seemed to have this unique ability to be near a lot of trouble, like things getting set on fire, pub arguments. I was kind of always there.
Okay.
I wouldn't be the one like going out starting trouble. I wasn't a saint. But I had this unique ability to always be in this sort of mad scenario every weekend. Another thing which was a huge part of growing up as well, there's an awful lot of suicide in the early noughties in Delvin, that area. Like 1 minute you're drinking with a guy and the next thing you're carrying his coffin. It was a very, very strange place to be, to try and make sense of that in your developmental age, along with pouring alcohol down on top of all that stuff. But I was supposed to go to America, and then I think my father said to me, "Why don't you throw your hat in the army? Well, you always talked about being a soldier." Like at the time, my uncle was a sergeant, and my granddad was a retired regimental sergeant major. My great grandfather had fought in the Battle of the Somme. So it was a family business. I applied for the British Army, French Foreign Legion, and the Irish Army in 2006. And thank God, touch wood, the Irish Army got back to me and I was successful in my interview and I got in. The thing that I realized very early on in recruit training, and by the way, I was by no means an exceptional soldier. I was had a lot of anxiety issues, mental health problems. You know, um, it was a massive change from basically marching to the beat your own drum to being told what to do, what to wear, where to go. But the thing that I realized was I really struggled in school as well. Is that I was craving that organization my whole life, and I didn't even know. So I came from an alcoholic home, which is not an uncommon thing in Ireland. My dad was a drinker. We were always warm. We were always fed. There was always a few pounding, in the house. It wasn't total chaos, broken windows and all that kind of stuff. But there was an awful lot of uncertainty. There was an awful lot of unpredictability. There was an awful lot of one day your daddy's there, the next day he's gone on the beer for 3 days. That sort of stuff. When I joined the Defence Forces, what do you mean? You want me to be here at this time?
Mhm.
You want me to dress this way? There was total certainty all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I missed my whole life. This is what they tried to do in school, but they took a different approach. They took an aggressive approach, which didn't work. You know what I mean? It didn't work. I just shut down. I said,
Yeah.
and I rebelled against it. Whereas the Defence Forces, and also, I knew it was my last year in salute. Like I'd had a couple of jobs. I left school very early. I had a couple of jobs. I knew it's, this is the last crack of the whip here. If you quit this, you're going to spend the rest of your life sitting about Delvin, butts of fags gathering around your ankles, wondering where it all went wrong. Do you know what I mean? I just knew instinctively I had to stick it out. So glad I did.
And did you find it hard? You said in 2006 that you're a big drinker. To come into it, as you talked about, regimental, where you have to be with timings to stop the drinking. Like you're in there back then, still 16, 17 weeks.
We started in December of 06 and we finished in April of 2007. I had a 2-week break, Christmas time. At the time, you see, we used to get out. If you got out on a weekend pass, it was straight to Biddy Mulligan. And there was a couple of great guys in my platoon. And if they're listening to this podcast, they'll get a laugh out. We used to, we had a fighting patrol straight to Biddy Mulligan's. Remember one time, we got an early release on a Friday, bank holiday weekend, near the end of training. We had an O group and we'd move out, 2 up, 1 down, covering all angles, and we're going to head to Biddy Mulligan's. And I got into Biddy Mulligan's and I said, I have to get the bus home at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. This could have been 12 or 1. I had about an hour window to get the bus. I said, I'll drink bottles. I don't really want to get too drunk. One of these delusional coping mechanisms, again, combating a bender. Start drinking bottles of Budweiser. And I looked at the clock. I said, I get the next one. It's a bus every 2 hours. And I drink another couple of bottles. I get the next one. So eventually, I knew about 6 o'clock. I was about 18 bottles of Budweiser deep. I said, I may go on the bus here now. And I got on the bus and drunk. And I blacked out. the bus. And I woke up, I looked out and I seen O'Connell Street. And I said, the outcome of this is not going to be good. And I was rattling as well. I couldn't find my bag, didn't know where anything was. Got off the bus then, went up to the guy. I said, when's the next bus back from Mullingar? He said, oh no, you just missed it. It's gone there. I said, well, is there any bus going to Delvin? Just burst out that. Where's that? So eventually, anyway, I got a bus back to Navan and then had to get a bus from Navan back to Kells. Ended up back at Kells at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Got one of the lads picked me up. And I said to him, don't arrive there without any alcohol. I was just, and that's the kind of way I lived my life. It was just this chaos. You see, not many people understand alcoholism. They think, people think it's a park bench, it's a dirty brown coat, it's a bottle of beer in a brown bag, and it's someone who has to drink every day, right? Which are elements of heavy drinking, by the way. The thing about alcoholism is it's a mental obsession and a physical allergy. I'd say it's a twofold problem, illness.
Okay.
Call it what you want. And, nowadays they have this fancy word on it called substance use disorder. You can flower it up whatever way you want. Alcohol will take the polish off your shoes if you have a problem with it. It's a subtle obsession, right? Not like, when you be obsessed with a girl when you were a young fella and all you could think about was meeting her, going to the cinema and all that. It's some days it's really heavy. Some days it's like, I have to drink, I'm going to drink, need to drink. Who's going to drink? Will we have money? Will I have enough money? What will I wear? Where will we go? Will there be crack there? Will there be crack at another place? All of these thoughts go around your head till eventually you give in and say, I'm going to drink and I'm going somewhere. And then other times, and this is the part that catches people out, this is the subtle part of the mental obsession. You're walking down the street, 31 degrees like it is today. Life is great. You haven't had a few beers in a few weeks. There's no drama in your life. There's no consequence in your life. Everything is great. And all normality gets pushed to one side by one subtle thought that comes into your head and goes, do you know what? A bottle of cider would be nice. Knowing what you know about alcohol, knowing where it brings you, and yet you make a decision based on that insane thought. It's like for me to take a drink today, after nearly 17 years, I would be committing the most insane act because I lose all control. I take a drink, the drink takes me.
Yeah.
I have no control where I'm going to end up, what I'm going to do. So I don't take one drink for one day. That's it. That's the magic formula. So once I give in to either one of those obsessions, whether it's the aggressive one that's heavy on the head, or whether it's the light breeze that just says, "What? A bottle of cider? What's the worst that can happen?"
And do you have that? Do you have that in your head sometimes? Fuck it, we'll have one more. Have one.
Today, sometimes a fleeting thought will come in, but I recognize it as what it is, and I have coping tools, as they call them nowadays. I'm a big man on spirituality. Sometimes I just pause and say the Serenity Prayer. Other times I'll just pause and go like I recoil from it as from a hot flame. Like this thing will hurt me. I'll give you an example, right? And then I'll explain the physical allergy. In 1998, I fell off the roof of my granddad's hay shed in Delvin. And I fell onto a cattle feeder and I broke 3 ribs. Now that's coming up on 30 years ago, 3 decades ago, right? When I drive into my granddad's yard and I see that hay shed, my brain tells me that thing will hurt you. Do you remember the day you fell off it? That was really sore. But where alcohol is concerned, I don't have that type of wiring. My brain will tell me alcohol's a solution. My brain will tell me alcohol will make me feel good. Alcohol will make me relaxed. This is the type of thought process. So we have to have certain steps or certain ideas to change that. And if you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk. Now that's mind blowing for someone who can't get past this idea that a drink will make me feel better.
Yeah.
Drink is my solution. So coupled with all that, you have what's known as a physical allergy. Now, whether that allergy, an allergy is defined as an abnormal reaction. I react abnormally when I drink. So whether that exists here, whether it exists in my right glute, or whether it exists in the left side of my brain is irrelevant. The fact is that once I take a drink, something inside me goes, we need more and more and more. And I'm drinking not because I'm lonely, not because my parents didn't love me, not because I was bullied in school. I'm drinking to try and satisfy that craving. And that's fascinating.
That's crazy. I can't never understand that because yes, I like me few
You don't
drinks.
have it.
I know
You
I have
don't
it.
have the bug. You
Yeah,
don't have the bug.
like
I think I'm an alien
Yeah.
explaining this to you. You're like, what? What do you mean you lose control? I'll end up 4 counties away in the same underpants. No one talking about.
And what are you like as a drunk? Are you a messy drunk? I know you talked about you're always around trouble, but are you a messy drunk? Or are you a violent drunk?
I'm unpredictable.
Okay, so you don't know.
No.
Okay.
If I could tell you today I'm going to be violent Noel, today I'm going to be sad Noel, today I'm going to be sleepy Noel,
Okay.
then I'd be still drinking. But I have no control over the type of person I be. It's a real kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. It's a roll of the dice which Noel you're going to meet if I take a drink. And that's why I say for me to take a drink would be committing the most insane act of life. The most insane.
But it's crazy how people judge. Okay, Decky, he's a messy drunk there. Right? Or Decky's on the beer 3 or 4 nights a week. He's a messy drunk. And he's a messy drunk. We actually don't understand him, or understand the trouble he's going through.
If he has what's known as they like to call it nowadays, substance use disorder, I call it alcoholism. That's because that's what it is. And when someone dies of alcoholism, you know, the family don't care whether it's called substance use disorder or alcohol. Alcohol will take the polish off your shoe. It will strip you. You will violate your standards quicker than you will lower them as an act of alcohol.
What's your biggest low when you're drinking alcohol?
There's lows. Like there's mountains. Like, I mean, situations where if I wasn't drinking, I wouldn't have been in it. The biggest low was there was a group of people trying to help me, right? And, in Mullingar. And in that group of people, there's a thing that happens after that group gathers together. And it's to take up a small collection, right? To rent in a room, make sure the lights are on, make sure that space is there for people to come. And the lowest point, one of the lowest points, it's pretty low. I was about 4 months sober at the time. I was 20 years old. So I tried to stop drinking at 18 and didn't get sober till I was 21. So in those 3.5 years, it was pretty rough. Like, I kept relapsing. I sent you the photograph to put up on the thing because that's my reminder. I look like I failed the auditions, train spotting that photograph. And one of the lowest points was I was handed a bag of money from that group by an older guy, and he said, "Will you just drop that across the road there? It has to be processed and sent to the right place." And I said, "Yeah, no bother." Now, if you asked me at the top of the stairs, was I going to drink this money? I would have said, no. If you hooked me up to a lie detector test and asked me, I would have said, no, I'm not. I got to the bottom of the stairs, and the place I was meant to drop the money was 25 paces to me, right, across the road, into a letterbox. There was another man going to take it and process it. John Daly's pub was to my left. I couldn't turn right. I just couldn't. I turned left down to John Daly's pub. And I drank that. And that's one of the lowest points because there's no bells and whistles. It was just at a point of total powerlessness. Every single bone in my body wanted to do the right thing. I was gripped by something larger. And if you don't have alcoholism, you won't understand that. You'll think, this fella's crazy. Why couldn't he just turn right? But that's the essence of being powerless. Like that's the essence of something larger, something way larger at play here.
But it is an addiction. Like any form of addiction is probably the same, and probably don't. Again, I don't understand in terms of people like that.
I'll explain to you in soccer terms, right? Because you're a soccer guy. All addiction plays for the same team, but they play in different positions.
Good.
And that's it. So the gambler might be the right full. Alcoholic could be playing in the middle of the field. Drug addict could be the goalkeeper. The food addict could be up front. Because the traits are slightly different. A fella says to me one time, an alcoholic will steal your wallet. A drug addict will steal your wallet and help you look for it. So there's slight variation.
Yeah. But the end goal is always the same.
The end goal is always the same. It's comfort. This thing is a solution. This thing will make me stop whatever, resentments are building up, whatever anger, whatever frustration, ill feeling I feel. When I take a drink, it's a solution.
And when you had your turning point, so what was the exact point of it saying, fuck this, I'm not drinking anymore? And is there anybody, one person or group of people that actually helped you more?
So it's ironic enough because I'd be a big man on spirituality. I believe that there is a spiritual realm. Other people might think that's nuts. I firmly believe that the day I left out my last drink, every candle that was ever lit for me or every prayer that was ever said by my granny and by my mother was answered in that. Because my last drink, I was in Mojo's in Mullingar, the 1st of November 2009. It was 20 to 12, 11:40. And ironically, that's the same time the Titanic hit the iceberg as well. Not the same date, but the same time. And it was a Captain Morgan and Coke, and I drank it 101,000 times before I turned right. I walked up to the bar and ordered another drink. Be it consciously or against my will or whatever, but that was a natural thing. Drink, order another one, drink. But that night, I turned left and walked out. No fighting, no bells and whistles, no madness. I just walked out. I got up the following morning with 20 euros in my pocket. It was the first time I had come out of a drinking bender with money in my pocket. Ever. Ever. Now, there's only 20 euros.
Still something.
But there was a change. Something different had happened. And I haven't had a drink since. Now, there was countless times. I mean, like you said, we could talk about this for 5 hours. There was countless times where I should have stopped, could have stopped, needed to stop, had to stop, and didn't and couldn't. But on that night, I can still taste it today. Captain Morgan and Coke, 2 cubes of ice, put it down, left and walk.
It's crazy. And if anybody's listening to us or watching us on YouTube here, and they are in that situation, is there any way to help them? Like, is there?
There's countless recovery fellowships, 5-step fellowships, countless. So whatever your crutch is, whatever whatever bone you have, whatever bug you have, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, food. I'm just listing a few off the top of my head here. I don't have them all, thank God. But you just Google one of those, and what I would say is go to the relevant 12 steps. That would be my advice to people. And also, if you're in trouble with the drink, I can't help you with gambling or anything else. I can help you with the drink. My personal details are available through this podcast. If anyone reaches out to you, give them my number, ring me.
Yeah, that's here. That's a lot. We had a fellow on a previous episode, Ryan Bradshaw. He's in obviously the defence force as well, but he had on the drink, and he came to a point and he realised that the drink was taking over, and he didn't want to be a role model for his brother, and fitness was his outcome. But we talked about overthinking, and we talked about overthinking, and he came from alcohol to training. So now he overdoes it in training.
Well, there's one thing I can say about that. I'm a big man on fitness, right? Big man on tipping away and doing something, whether it's a 5K or lifting a few weights. You don't have to go mad, but you will not black out and assault an officer of the law.
Okay.
So you could be a hell of a lot worse than open a bit of iron.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I mean, so you could give up the drink and replace it with sugar. Right. You could give up the drink and replace it with sex. You could give up the drink and replace it with gambling. There's countless avenues. So picking up something healthy like, physical activity and being an example, being a role model, being an influencer in that area, that's a positive thing. In my opinion, it's a positive thing. Now, if you're doing it to the point where you're injuring yourself and you're hurting yourself and you're pushing through injury, then you need to look at your relationship with it. But you see, there's a very thin line between a heavy drinker. A heavy drinker with sufficient reason, change of environment, ill health, warning from a doctor, whatever, will be able to stop or moderate. But the alcoholic, virtually in almost all cases, not all cases, I'm not going to commit to a universal answer, but in most cases, will find it absolutely impossible to stop. Like I said, there was countless times I should have stopped, would have stopped, couldn't. I'll give you one example. I remember I was 19 or 20 and I'd strung together a couple of months of sobriety, and I was going on this holiday, and all the old guys that were helping me back in the day were telling me, don't go on the holiday. You're not strong enough. Don't think it's a good idea. And I said, what do you know? I'm going on the holiday. And it's back to this kind of subtle insanity or mental obsession. I got off the bus, or the plane, got on the bus to the hotel, got to the hotel. And Irish people have this unique ability, right, to go all over the world, but the first thing we look for is an Irish. Absolutely. I'd love to do a study on it someday. There probably has been a study done now. But anyway, I was queuing and I was, waiting to check in. I went outside, smoking at the time, was having a cigarette. Looked across the road and there was an Irish back. Now, if you had asked me on the plane or getting on the bus, are you going to drink on this holiday? I would have said, no, I'm not going to drink on this holiday. I'm sober, that's it. And I seen this billboard for Portuguese beer. And my brain said to me, the years you were drinking, you never had Portuguese beer. I made a decision based on that insane thought to take a drink. Once I took a drink, the drink took me, and I lay drunk on that holiday for 7 days. Now, that's not the habit of drinking. That is the obsession of drinking.
But it's hard. Like you're saying you're 19 and 20 years of age. That's very, very hard at that age to recognise.
Completely, yeah.
Very, I know mine. I was 19 and 20. I love alcohol, but I don't think. Yes, I drank a lot at 20s. I was young lad at the army, so I was having a good few bits of culture back then. But just that's a credit to you, for what you came through and to recognise that. But is there anybody that stands out? So I talk about role models in terms of what helped you back then. Is there anybody that stands out to you?
I have countless. So there was a man that helped me an awful lot. He's a PGA professional. He's living in America, David Byrne. Check him out on Instagram. He's a PGA golf coach. David has been a serious rock for me over the last 20 years. When I first met him, and he was a massive, massive influence. I remember I used to go down to Davy in Longford Golf Club. He was the pro in Longford. When I stopped drinking, my life was in ruins, man. I mean, in ruins. Talk to you briefly about the start about, I was wrapped up in a court case for something I did in a blackout. Ended up getting 12 months in prison for it. Overturned it to a €200 fine. Couldn't carry my rifle in work. Wasn't allowed to do a course. Crammed up to the comm centre to answer the phone. Wasn't allowed to answer the phone during the day in case some high-ranking officer rang. It was a really bad place, really dark place. And I used to go down to David. And I'd go in with some problem, oh, me head, Davy, me head's gone or whatever. Some trivial problem that I thought was massive, as you do with when you're a young fella. Davy got into a habit of I'd ring him on the way down and he'd have 250 golf balls in a bucket and a 7-iron, right? And when I'd walk in, he could see the madness in me. He described me, he says, you were like a rabbit with mixed toes. He says, you were crazy, And I was very unhealthy as well. My liver was inflamed and white and my eyes were all yellow. I nearly died. Alcohol nearly killed me. That's not a big tissue. You can see the photograph. I was dying inside. David, when he'd see me come in, he'd reach up and he'd have a bucket of golf balls and a 7-iron. And he'd say, go and hit them back to me when they're gone. And when I used to come back to him, I'd have welts in my hands, but whatever was bothering me was gone. He knew that. He knew that I just needed to expend a bit of energy, needed a bit of time on my own, just concentrating on something else. He was a massive, massive. I owe him my life. I'd never be able to repay David for the way, the leadership and, everything he showed. And that's outside the Defence Forces. Then I was so lucky. I was so lucky to have a mentor in my uncle Paddy, who retired as CS. Paddy was a sergeant at the time, joined the army in 1990. I joined in 2006. It was 16 years between us and we ended up with the same last 2 digits. He was 22 pointed, I was 22 pointed. Paddy only ever gave out to me once, and it was drink related. Only once, drink related. But I was so lucky. He never covered me. He never got me out of any trouble. He never, went out of his way. But he quietly influenced me by his example, by how he done business. And when I became a sergeant, I genuinely wanted to be like him. How he done business, how he treated people. He was well able to clip people if people needed a clipping. He was the king of one-liners. Okay. The king of one-liners. Paddy Poynton should write a book. Internally then as well, I was influenced by people like Sergeant Major David O'Reilly. And I really don't want to start listing names off here because I'm going to forget people.
Yeah.
There was even in the officer ranks there, Lieutenant Colonel Inca Bryan. I've worked along with Ian since he was a lieutenant. I worked with him I was overseas with him when he was a captain. I worked with him in the office at ECOS Ops when he was a Commandant MA to Major General Tony McKenna, and I was the sergeant. And he's Lieutenant Colonel now in J35. Brilliant bit of stuff. He's been a quiet influence in my career as well. Commandant Ronan Lamb. I don't want to say
there's loads of them. Yeah.
There's loads of people, and then externally, then in my best friend, right? My best friend in the recovery circles is a fella from Killybags called Paddy Kenny. He's a civvy.
Yeah.
He's about my only civvy friend. I'm only joking. We've walked. He's 18 years off drink. I'm 17 years. We walked the path together. He's a great bit of stuff. And then obviously, currently at the moment, I have a mentor in Texas, Joe McFadden. He's a good egg too, and helps me a lot. Got me through a tough time when my dad died there a year and a half ago, and guy in New York called Billy Moore as well. So again, the list is endless. Even your own CS Mick McKeown, brilliant bit of stuff. Worked closely with me when I was a gunner corporal, mentored me the whole way up. So I'm spoiled, right? I'm spoiled. I have, say, 100 people I could list here now that have quietly or loudly influenced me in some way, shape.
Would you look back and say, like, the job we're in, but in to have a support network that we have, do you think that's a positive? Civvies don't understand it. Like, I think in the army, you have everything. You have the tough love, you have the teddy bear, you have everything. And you talked about your uncle being a one-liner. Sometimes one-liner's enough.
One-liner save your life. A good one-liner can save your life, because it's even the name of your podcast, On Your Own Time. You hear that? Come on now, lads, on your own time now. That means that we're going to cram 10 hours work into 40 minutes. We're getting it. It's index. We're gone, lads. I'm blessed. Like, I don't see the Defence Force as a job. Genuinely, I would do it for free. And I know that irritates people. The fact that they pay me is a bonus. And that's part of the enthusiasm. I made a deal with myself when I got through all that madness in 2008, 2009. And when I got that conviction overturned to a €200 fine, I made a deal with myself. I remember standing in the court, steps of the court. I remember the judge says David Fitzpatrick was another man, a sergeant at the time, gave me a character reference in the court that time. The judge's final words will echo with me. I'll never forget them. I can recite them right here. He said, due to the outstanding character reference given by a man that has served over 2 decades in the defence, I feel it only justified to give this young man a second chance. €200 fine, get out of my court. That was from a 12-month prison sentence. Like, I was gone. My job was gone. Everything was gone. I was sober about a year and a half at that time when that final decision was made. And I think that was a huge help to me as well. Plus, I had the bags packed and ready to go to prison. I had fully accepted whatever the outcome would be. And I went up to the judge that time and I took out 450s and I gave them to him. And he said, oh, no, Mr. Poynton, you don't pay me. I said, Your Honour, take it. Because as God is my witness, I'll never be back in it again. That was a huge turning point. I made a decision. Whatever the Defence Forces asked me to do, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it with an annoying degree of enthusiasm as well. The word enthuse means to be possessed of a God. That's what it means. An old word means to be possessed of a God. And I approach everything today with an annoying sense of enthusiasm.
We actually had a conversation before we start recording here about people talking about you and people having an opinion on what you on what you do and what you say, and the two of us have the exact same reaction. So talk to me about, like, you're talking about annoyance about people like at the army. You're on about not getting paid and stuff like that. So what does that mean, or what do them people mean to you?
You see, nothing is either good nor is it bad. It just is as it is. I've just recently finished a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way." So the problem is this: it's my perception is the problem. So if somebody has a problem with me and how I do business, it would be a preference that they wouldn't talk about me. It would be a preference that they wouldn't sit in the mess and cut the back off me. It would be a preference that they wouldn't concern themselves with what my career moves are. But it's an emotionally charged preference for me to demand them to be any other way than the way they are, which is a breeding ground for resentment. which actually leaves me in pain. So a wise man once said, it's like taking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yeah.
It's just, if somebody wants to do that, or son,
Yeah.
because I'm going to march to the beat of my own drum. I've been doing it since I was 21 years of age in the Defence Forces, and it has paid off. I was lucky enough to get promoted to the rank of senior NCO at 37 years of age, which means that if I want, I can serve to 62, and I'm qualified to be a regimental sergeant major. I'm not ready. I don't think I'm ready. Maybe a bit of acting, I don't know. But I think one of the biggest changes I've seen in the last couple of years, and I was a victim of this too, and was actually talking about it this morning with people, is promoting people too early has a negative impact. Because, you know, the senior NCOs course, I spoke to the last senior NCOs course as the past student. I said to them, this course will not teach you how to be a company sergeant. It will qualify you to be a sergeant. If you don't know how to be a company sergeant at this stage of your careers as a senior sergeant, then you're in bother. That's exactly what I said. So you need experience. And, you know, I was 5 years as a sergeant, which is short enough, but relevant enough to move on. But my biggest regret, and I've often said this to people, is I didn't spend long enough as a corporal. And that was a byproduct of aggressive enthusiasm, ability to say, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll go there. I'll instruct in Dublin for 9 months. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do this course. I was on autopilot, went overseas a lot, just kept saying yes. And eventually I got the rub of the green and got on the standard course very early. Not as early as what's happening now, but again, it'll remain to see whether that's a positive thing. But I personally feel like being a corporal is one of the most exciting things in the Defence Forces. You're instructing people. You're the strategic corporal. You're the link between.
You're the busiest man.
Yeah, you're the link between what needs to be said and what needs to get done. And I didn't spend long enough in that rank. That's one of my biggest regrets. So if anyone, for me, that's looking at this, that's at the rank of corporal, take a knee, take on some water, and enjoy it.
Have you seen much changes in the Defence Force over your time?
Yeah, well, I've seen barrack closures. Like I was in Mullingar for 6 years, and you know, without dwelling on the past, you know, and I've said this out loud. I've had the moral courage to say this out loud loads of times. I don't think that the restructure of the Defence Forces in 2012 was a positive thing. There's nobody to blame for that. It was just a decision that was made based on the economic state of the country at the time. It's not a. We're not going to play the victim here. Where losing the old Fort Western Brigade was a bad idea. Like we had a lot of proud traditions in Fort Western, and we had a great link between Mullingar, Longford, Athlone, Galway, and Finner Camp. It was a huge traditional link there in the west, the Midwest of the country, and with the stroke for Penn, that was gone. A very proud battalion in Cork, the 4th Battalion, Ray Goggins Battalion. We all know Ray. So it's like Ray's a national treasure, in my opinion. And with the stroke for Penn, that battalion was gone just because it had a number 4 in it.
Yeah.
I think we're still, not so much now, I think we're coming out the other end of it, but we licked our wounds for a long, long time as a result of them decisions. 16,000 people applied for the Defence Force last year. That's astronomical. You know, so that's positive. Numbers are up. Establishments are up. People are enthusiastic. What I would like to see, and this is the biggest change I've seen, is the participation in sports.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, when I was at Gossam, I remember being pulled out of a scratch one time, myself and Jack Maher, to go hurling for the brigade. Now, we were unpopular with the platoon, but off we went our merry way to hurl for the brigade. And we were down at the hurling last week. The Air Corps had to join with the Defence Forces, with the training centre at 11-a-side level. And I was talking to my granddad, who's 90 years of age, retired Sergeant Major. He said, God, that's shocking. He said, one time the Corps would have 4 teams or 5 teams, the Air Corps would have 2 or 3, and there'd be county hurlers on them. So deterioration, like athletics is practically non-existent. Shot put, javelin. I heard the other day there was a soccer parade in the barracks and 6 people showed up and 25 people went map reading.
Yeah.
Do you know, one time there'd be fellas, as a fella joked, he says, I wouldn't care if they put me as the corner flag.
Yeah.
It was a soccer parade, we're going on it, you know, and we had great times in Mullingar playing soccer out the camp field, you know.
So last year was the first year, I think, the 6th Battalion and the regiment had to withdraw from the Cunningham Cup. couldn't fulfill the teams. Like from me being former six planning, the Cunningham Cup was major. Like it was like the former winners, like they've won it multiple times. Same with the Regiment. The Regiment are the savage as well. But I think it's on a they're back playing again this year, obviously. So hopefully it's different this year.
Yeah, but that starts at a grassroots level.
Yeah,
right. So, obviously, you need the senior NCOs to drive it on. And you say that sports is an inaugural part of being a so.
Yeah,
like playing on a team, and like that. I wasn't a great soccer player. I wasn't a great Gaelic player. I wasn't a great hurler. But I participated. I loved it. I just loved being in team sports. You know, it was a huge, and you grow and you meet other people, and there's tradition, and there's, now having said that about the hurling as well, even though we've had to amalgamate commands and we've had to amalgamate teams and barracks and stuff like that, it was still a great competition.
Yeah.
Well ran, great hurling. A couple of the Kilkenny inter-county lads were playing because obviously they're out of the championship, which usually wouldn't happen at this time of the year. So it was great to see the likes of Richie Reid. No, it wasn't great to play against him. Scored 2-6 or 2-7 in first gear. It's wonderful to see. And what opportunities for someone who, as was a junior cornerback at best, right? And I get to hurl alongside Richie Reid, Richie Keogh, Paul Murphy, all these guys. It was phenomenal, Owen Larkin in the past when he was hurling.
Yeah, but same with the soccer, like we're talking about Cunningham Cup. But look at the men's DF football team and the females DF football team. Like they both went to the Sisms and performed well in the Sisms. There's one fella there, Common Barber, and his referee committee. Same with the male and the females. Time, like I actually had this conversation many times. The time that they put into sports in the DF,
keeping it alive,
is incredible.
And he's another guy I can add to my list. Great guy.
Yeah.
I worked with him. Remember picking him up from the airport in Israel and bringing him down to occupy Golan on his first trip when he was a lieutenant. And I've worked with him along. He's coming now. Brilliant bit of stuff. Man pours his heart and soul. You see him on social media with the battalions out route marching around Dublin.
I seen him there. He was training one day. So he was training with the DF football team. He was the OC over the recruits. He was on the hills with them. Yeah. And then the next morning he was back doing football training again.
There should be a comment of Richie Barber in every corner of the defence, in my opinion.
Move on a small bit. Senior NCO, what does that mean to you and the history you have within the Defence Force, your family history?
My leadership style has changed a little bit. Anyone that's listening to me talk here now knew me as a corporal would laugh because I was wiry and I was fired up. And like I said, I didn't have the experience. And, I didn't have the relevant experience. And I made a couple of questionable decisions. We all do. I never done anything morally wrong. There's no mad mistakes. But looking back now, as a senior NCO, you have to be more of a human resources manager. So obviously I'm a big man in the rank structure, the chain of command. The Romans invented it for a reason. It works. Use it. But because of my life experience, I know the difference between who needs a kick up the ass and who needs a pat on the back.
Okay.
Now, there's very little distance between a kick in the ass. But because of my life experience, like you cannot have a black and white approach. As a senior enlisted leader, you have to be able to fluctuate your leadership style based on who you lead. And that's non-negotiable. You cannot take the command hand approach to every single person. It just doesn't work. Even there, if someone has a problem with the drink, that hat goes on for me. Into the office, sit down, tell me. And I explain to them about the stuff I talked to you at the start and see do they match their mental inconsistencies with mine? You know what I mean? And then on the flip side, there's a lad who is tactically and consistently performing below the required standard. Then he just needs to be administrated properly. When it comes to signing on, he won't get signed on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you can't, Sergeant Major Dave Riley gave me a great acronym one time, CIA, control, influence, accept. And I control the situation. And I influence the situation. Or do I just have to accept it? It is.
Savage. How do you balance military life with family life?
I want to ask my wife that question.
I'd say like my wife kills me the whole time for being away, but like you're busy like.
Well, I'm busy, yeah, and I'm based in Baldonnel now, which is an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm lucky enough. The job I'm in at the moment, I can work from Athlone a few days a week, which is grand, takes some pressure off family life, which is great, which is another massive change I've seen in the Defence Forces for the good. I believe that if you have a company of men, you need to tug out every day. If you're in an administration role, you can work it remotely, if you know, as long as the job gets done. But no, it's grand. Like the family home, sometimes I have to work hard on not being the CS in the house. You know, it's very hard. Being a flight sergeant in the Air Corps, coming from a proud military family, you know, uh, my wife is not a private soldier. She's not a corporal. She doesn't, even though she comes from an army family, you know, she doesn't understand how, you know, if we have to be somewhere at 9 o'clock and it's an hour drive, we're leaving at 7.
Yeah.
She's looking at me like, this is insanity, but that's just the way I'm wired. So sometimes I need to relax. And if we miss our timings, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to be charged by some, you know, growly sergeant major. Like, it's okay in the family home. The thing with the children is, and they probably have a different experience than how I see it, is the number one goal for me being a father is never forget what it feels like to be a child. Like, I suffered a lot as a child. I was always up in my head and insecure, and I was small and fat as well. I'm not too far behind that today, but I had a really rough time as a child. I had a really rough time in national school. Uh, you know, one teacher in particular left a lasting effect. But as a wise man once told me, there are two things you need to know about your childhood. It was long and it's over. Move on.
Move on. Yeah.
You can't be living in victimhood or, you know, poor me. Why did this happen to me, sort of thing. But it definitely it definitely shaped how I view the world and dealt with the human race. But trying to balance that again, it helps that my wife comes from a military family. Her dad, Private Mark Cox, died in service there a few years ago. A great bit of stuff. One of the best drivers the Defence Forces ever had. He turned a truck on a 50-pence piece.
Just on that way, right? And we talked about this beforehand, and what a sound man, and what a legend. I've actually seen him, like, been up in transport, come down, and some drivers can't get the truck in the gate. He'd have to go down and drive the truck in the gate.
He's a great man.
And I remember one particular, we went to, it was one weekend, we were sent off to, I was a young private, we were sent off to somewhere in Ballymore or something, so that side direction. There was a big fun day on. And he had, on the back of the loader, he had an LTAF, okay, and we were the security party. That man drove that truck with that LTAF on the back of it. The FFR could barely keep up with him.
Yeah, just plowed on.
And not a bother to him. But like, he was such a...
A negative thing because those guys were serious workhorses. And I was lucky enough to have a trip overseas with Mark, which was brilliant. You know, it's a treasured memory of mine. I was a private, he was a water truck driver, and I used to do shotgun with him.
And were you with the wife tonight?
Yeah, I just met Lisa at the time.
He was giving you the warning, does he?
Sure. Frankie, we used to flagging him. Yeah, they were great. They were great times. He asked me one thing. We were overseas that time. He says to me, "Would you just look after her?" And well, look, I'm not the easiest person to live with. My wife will tell you that. But I think I've done that. I would like to think that if he came back down from heaven and said, "Sam, you know, you're on course. You're looking after them." You know, it's not easy from a military family where you have to go into your wife and say, "I'm deploying overseas for 6 months. These are my dates for warm up. I'll be gone for 3 months. I'll see you in the evening time." Like, she's the commanding officer in the house. She has to get school runs. She has to get sandwiches. You know, all of this stuff, lunches, everything. Like, we think, you know, we have it hard because we're on the road and we're off doing LFTT or whatever we're doing. But running a house is a hard job.
It's actually, it's the hardest thing you can do.
Give me a life fire tactile train exercise any day.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, in terms of the GA, so what role does that play in your life? I know recently we've been absolutely hectic, but in general.
Last night I was an umpire at a Division 6 final.
I see the picture of that.
Yeah, and then at the weekend I was water distribution engineer, as Bobby Boucher was there.
Bobby Boucher, yeah.
Look, in military terms, my job with Westmeath the last couple of months was the platoon runner. Whatever Mark McHugh wanted, he gave me the nod. I just done it. I looked after the GPSs. I didn't have a table at the seat at the decision-making table, thank God, because the pressure that was on those boys. But Mark's a good friend of mine, and he rang me last October. Just said, look, I have a job for you there, looking after the GPSs, a few other bits. And I said, well, what do you want me to do exactly? And he says, whatever I ask you to do. And I says, yeah, I'm there. I'm in. I mean, I remember the first day we were in training. If you had said to me that day, fasten your seatbelt there, kid. We're about to go on an unbelievable journey. I would have said you were insane. I mean, we had a good O'Byrne Cup campaign. We kicked the winning score in the last minute. Luke Loughlin, legend, right? Won the O'Byrne Cup. Westmeath haven't won it in a few years. They haven't won it that much in my lifetime anyway. They won it in 1988. I think they won it a couple of times since, but winning the O'Byrne Cup was a big deal. It's well organised, friendly. And then we went into the league campaign. We had a good run in the league, and 6 seconds to go down in Wexford Park, we lost the game. Get the ball away, quick out, quick kick out. Ball went in, sort of half volley, back in the net. Don't get promoted. And I mean, talk about a low, like talk about being depleted, talk about being shell shocked, right? I remember sitting down there that time when I was collecting the GPSs. 21 minutes, nobody spoke a word. Then we were off for a few weeks, obviously, we went into the Leinster campaign. And the Leinster campaign, I think someone told me last night, Jason from the Loaf of Bread podcast said that we the highest scoring Leinster campaign of all time, which is fascinating. And, I said it on Instagram yesterday. I would follow Mark McHugh to outer Mongolia with not only a snug pack jacket and the makings of a cup of tea under me. The standard that man set within that setup, and like I am so honoured and so like I'll never be able to repay him for bringing me in. Never, because I know that I wouldn't have been there without Mark. You know, because the boys have their set up and they have their way going on. They have everything in place. Mark brought me in, and like I'll never be able to repay him for that experience. It was absolutely incredible. And the other thing I want to mention is the panel of men, players. I'm heading to overseas soon, please God. I'm just waiting on the deployment date. Even the last 6 trips that I done, there's not one single young fella or person or man on the Westmeath setup, players and coaching staff and backroom team, that I wouldn't take overseas. That's a fact. Just the professionalism, the way they approached the year, everything that was laid out for them, they just did it, and it was just in it. It's very hard to nail it down in a sentence.
So from a senior NCO point of view to Mark, so leadership qualities, talk to me, like, is there much of a difference? Like,
Mark fluctuates between his leadership style based on who he's talking to. He doesn't know that.
Okay.
He's not aware of that.
Natural.
It's just natural to him. He is a football genius. He comes from a football dynasty. His dad is a gentleman. I've had the privilege of meeting his brother plays for Donegal. So it's natural for Mark. He instinctively knows where to be on a football field. And he's instilled that in the lads. Like, the lads would do apps. They'd run through a brick wall for the players would. He just instilled that belief, like, you know, where he just, there was an article in it's actually stuck to my fridge at home. There was an article in the Westmeath Examiner back in November 2025. The heading is picture of Mark took over the job. The heading is, why not Westmeath? Like, why not? Like, who gives Loud the right to win a Leinster Championship ahead of Westmeath? Who gives me the right to be in a All-Ireland semi-final ahead of Westmeath? You know, why not Westmeath? Why can't we be dining at the top table at Gaelic?
it's mad, isn't it? 'Cause, like, I'm not a JA back. I don't follow you, JA, but like, it's like we jumped on the bandwagon. Well, when you start Westmeath start performing well, I'm like, Jesus, they're actually, I heard for years they're terrible. but like incredible for what they've achieved this year. And like to bring it to Pearse Park, like Pearse Stadium, like I'm League of Ireland, so I had the privilege of actually being on a soccer match. Galway United played in Derry St. Pearse Park, and I was like, first time, actually the second time I actually stood in that stadium was the first time I was Ed Sheeran concert. But I stood in there and I was like, my God. And there was like, I think it's like only 4,000 soccer fans there. And one of the stewards turned to me and says, if you think this is amazing, you should have seen Westmeath last week.
25,000.
25,000. He said they were mad.
But see, this is what happens. Winning breeds this when you're winning. And what I would say to anybody who's a Westmeath person, but bear in mind now, I was in Athlone like in 1995 with my father when we scored 3 points from play. A very, very good Westmeath team, a very strong Westmeath team with some great players. Scored 3 points from play. My father smoked 40 major on the way home, didn't talk for 2 days. So I've been brought to Westmeath games up and down the country, win, lose or draw. I've been following them. I remember when they won the minor in 95 and the county went, I mean, bananas. Won an under 21 then in 99. Kerry, a solid Kerry team, a lot of big names on that Kerry team. And then obviously with Paddy O'Shea's era, and something I carry with me all the time, both in sobriety and in life and in the army, is that saying from Paddy where he said, a grain of rice will tip the scale. And that's even with mental health.
Yeah.
Grain of rice will tip the scale. You have to be on top of this stuff. And, you know, for me, my dad passed away a year and a half ago, like tipped me over and I became, you know, very lost with a lot of years of sobriety under my belt. And became very, very lost. It had a huge effect on me. So a grain of rice will tip the scale, Paddy said in 2004. And then winning the Leinster, and God, you know, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I suppose we talk about belief and we talk about the universe creating opportunities for you and things that happen in your life by just staying alive and doing the right things. That's why I got the opportunity to go in and had the experience I've had working with the lads the last couple of months. 2004, I was in Crow Park with Shane Power, a good friend of mine, underage football together, Ireland. And he deflected to our noisy neighbours. He transferred to Clonkill, but we forgive him for that. But I played Gaelic football. Myself and Shane were side by side. When the final whistle went, I ran out onto the pitch. I grabbed the player. Shane ran and got the match ball. I met him afterwards. He had the match ball in his hand. So what's that? He said, it's the match ball. Now, I'm not joking, right? At least once, if not twice a month, in the last 22 years, I've been sitting somewhere quietly, fishing at a lake, or bouncing on a door, or driving detail, or having a coffee, whatever, somewhere. And I would think about that moment where he came up to me with the match ball, and I would say, why didn't you think of that? Why didn't you go and get that ball? And I honestly had that regret. And when the hooter went in the Leinster final, I was running out onto the pitch and then this thought came into my head. Match ball. And I ran down to Evan Comerford and he kicked, obviously he had the ball in his hand. He was getting ready for a kick out. Hooter went. He kicked the ball into the goals in temper. And the final ball that was in play, the Leinster final, came rolling out to me like a rose pet. My foot under it. And I ran back in, got all the boys to sign it, gifted it to Mark. It was a gift. And the reason I did that was the most important inanimate object I ever owned, right? For the brief time that I owned it. And the reason I gave it to Mark was, number one, his dad has the football from the 92 All-Ireland, which is nice. I gave it to him because I will never be able to repay for what he gave me. And I know I might sound soppy here. Some people might be looking at this going, Storm Madman, all you were doing was kit and equipment, GPS, walk. But it was just to be in that circle, to have, you know, like, to have the jersey on you, to be sitting in the dugout with the boys on match day, like, just soaking in the energy, to see what it's done for the people of Westmeath as well. And I suppose that was the point I was getting at, is that I would ask people to never forget this feeling and stick with Westmeath, because we're on a journey as a county, you know, and we're no longer going to be the punchbacks.
Obviously, and Mike, sitting in the dressing room after winning the Leinster, what was it like?
Well, my favourite part was when Matthew Whittaker dumped a big bucket of ice over Mark's head.
All right.
Froze him to death. It was inexplainable. Like, we were sitting there and because Mark Mark told the lads, we're going to win Leinster. He instilled that belief in us that we're going to win Leinster. I remember when the Hoover went in normal time, Shannon Baker scored the equalising point. The field and to knock over that point. And I asked him, what was going through your head? He says, well, I was thinking about getting back out for the kick out, but he says, if I had got the ball earlier, I would have kicked over 2 points. That's what he said. Just cold blooded, just brilliant, very, very professional young man. But I remember the Hooter went and there's no bells and whistles. Like, we were in a normal time. It's quiet enough. Lads were getting electrolytes into them. Lads were getting a couple of runs or whatever. It's just, there was a quiet stillness in the dressing room. I don't know, was it Emmett or Mark or someone? I remember someone saying, we're not leaving Croke Park without that. Get out there and win that game. And what that Westmeath team done, that Dublin team in extra time, was astronomical.
You were underdogs, right?
Underdogs. We were 6-1 by the bookies. We were 6-1 against Meath, I think 4-1 against Kildare. No one gave us a chance. Even all the punditries, you look back over the clips, nobody gave Westmeath a chance. The mighty Dubs, you know, like people saying Dublin didn't play well at the start of the year. Dublin in All-Ireland quarter final.
Yeah. Look at the selection they
I
play
would
from.
argue that there is no such thing as a bad Dublin team. There's no such thing as a bad Dublin team. They're in All-Ireland quarter final now. Or if they're beating Donegal, who are classed as one of the All-Ireland favourites. Division 1 champions. The shift the lads put in injury time to get that win. And then when that Hooter went, it's just inexplainable.
Like, what was the training? What was their physical training like for that? Like, we're talking, I come from a football background. I know pre-season, like, you know, the elite refereeing training is like, they're different gravy.
Well, you can't hide in a Gaelic football.
Yeah.
You cannot. Right? In the modern game, it's all about your legs doing the work. I won't say too much about the type of training that we're doing. I was lucky enough to work alongside the strength and conditioning coach with some of the gym sessions, different things I got to do. And I would say here now that Tom Gribben from Armagh is one of the most professional and clued in strength and conditioning coaches I've ever worked with. And that's going to all the PTIs, when you're a PTI yourself, and there's loads of lads, Mitch, brilliant bit of stuff. This guy, if you took Tom and said, right, Tom, you're now the Sergeant Major over the depot, training depot, he would just fit in there.
Yeah.
Like, he was so good. Like, every decision he made based on what the lads done with the GPS data, he was just so professional. His standards were so high. And just to observe that from the sideline was brilliant. You know, I learned an awful lot from Tom, and then complemented by the leadership work that Jerry Duffy was doing as well. You know, brilliant bit of stuff too. So it was just, it was the collective bubble. Everybody played a part.
So there's more to come from Westmeath in here.
Well, watch this space. That's all I'll say.
You told me about New York as your second home, where you love New York. Talk to me about that.
I want to give 2 lads a shout out before we move on to New York, because I didn't mention them. 2 lads that I work very closely with. Paddy Walt and Fergie Dardis. Fergie was the water distribution engineer.
Bobby
Boucher. And Paddy was the head kit man. And just those 2 lads, the crack we had, you know, we had our own little bubble, and we set up the dressing room, we set up the warm-ups and all that, and we gelled off each other. And Paddy, of course, was my underage coach. Just, I wanted to give the boys a shout out because their dedication and their professionalism to Westmeath, GA and football in particular, is immeasurable. Westmeath setup are so lucky to have those 2 guys.
And I think people forget that. I think people forget the work, the stuff that people do in the background. Like, I have a mate as a kit man. Amount of work to do, and at that level you're talking about, fair play to them what to do, and I don't think people give them enough credit, you know. Yeah. New York
City, the greatest place on the planet. I've been there 12 times. I think deep down, if I wasn't in the army, I'd be living there. There's a great GA community out there. I said at the start, I have a good friend out there, Billy Moore. I have another good friend there at the moment, Brendan Murtagh's daughter. Brendan played hurling for Westmeath. she's daughter, a very good friend of mine, Amy. She's out there at the moment. I just love the place. There's just something about it.
The buzz, isn't it?
It's savage. You can go in any direction and it's like being in a different place. Like you can sit in Times Square if you want, watch all the people go by. You can go down to the West Village and have a coffee. Go down to the East Village and have a bagel. Go down to Little Italy and have a pasta. Walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, up to Gaelic Park in the Bronx. Clean Avenue is like a little town in Ireland. You know, it's a savage place. I've been there a good few times.
I had the pleasure of being there for a couple of times myself, and I actually said to Michaela, my wife, of all the places I went to my holidays, to Caribbean and all that stuff, I love New York. I just love the atmosphere around it. I wasn't in half the place, not even 5% of the places you were in, but even the popular tourist spots. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's the top class place. Like we were walking down the East Village one time, myself and Buddy Paddy. We met Bill Burr immediately. And all he wanted to do was talk to us about the troubles in Northern Ireland. Like he was fascinated on the famine. And I'd say now, thinking back, we went into Cat's Diner for a sandwich. If we asked him to come into Cat's Diner with us that day, he would have come in. He was just loved the Irish history and all the stories about it. But Bill is a very funny guy. That's the type of things that happen in New York. You know, and when you're walking down, I was crossing the street one time in Times Square and bumped into a fella I sat beside the Nationals.
Mad.
You know, it's just, I was on a train there recently and got chatting to these two guys, two construction workers, and boys were over there working, and the man says to me, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Mullingar." And he said, "Oh, my wife has a friend from Mullingar. He's in the army." I said, "What's his name?" I said, "Don't know his second name, but his first name is Noel." And they said, "Who's your wife?" And told me his wife's name, Maggie. I said, "That's actually me, dude." You know, so like that's in Lower Manhattan on the 4 train, going up to the Bronx, 1 o'clock of the day. The chances of that landing, but it's just those are kind of, and then the food, like, you know,
Yeah.
you go out pizzas. It's just there's just something about it.
Definitely will go back there. So, what achievements are you most proud of in your life?
My family,
Family.
like my wife, and 3 kids, and our little home. Even though it's in Athlone, I would like them Mullingar. Being brutally honest, nailing that down, 3 kids. You know, trying to influence them and trying to set the standard for them when they do get old enough that they see that it's, you know, important to contribute to life, important to have a career or a job or, you know, be of service and those type of principles in the house, not to be out for yourself, you know, help people where possible. So I would say the family, I don't regard sobriety as an achievement, right? Which is quite funny to say because it isn't, it is like it's a
Absolutely,
huge
yeah.
achievement. But I just try to keep that back to that moment when I left my last drink, that something larger took place in my life, something unexplainable, something that I cannot put words to, showed up in my life and changed the way I live.
And values, personal values. So, what personal values are non-negotiable?
Integrity,
Integrity.
and character. Like, so we talked about it at the start. Defence Force values are a savage guiding principle, right? I mean, look, you can pull 25 values out of them, you could mush them all into one, but as a guiding set of principles, like when we were getting the PowerPoints, became the new thing in the Defence Force posters everywhere. I thought it was quite funny that we were making a big deal out of these new words. Like, why wouldn't you want to live your life like that? So having integrity is important, right? Because what I was talking to you about when my dad passed away. My dad passed away coming up on 2 years ago. I had this thing called a second surrender. I called it the dark night. So some people react to grief differently. I went into Sergeant Major mode when my dad passed during the funeral. And I could plan, I could organize, I could keep people in line, I could dress people properly. I knew where the coffin needed to be. I wrote the eulogy. I was in my happy place when I was in there. But when all was said and done, and there was nothing left, only a bunch of flowers on a pile of dirt with a wooden cross in a graveyard in Delvin, My best friend, the guy that I, love so much and hung out with and, traveled around the country with, around the world with, was gone in an instant, like the flick of a switch. My dad was 60 years of age, took a massive heart attack, like a light switch, gone. It was after that I started filling that emptiness with spending money I didn't have, right? Which is a problem. A trail of Temu packages coming in the door, stuff that I didn't need. Um, Working 3 jobs, staying out all night, seeking that kind of comfort rather than character. So there's a guiding principle I have is choose character over comfort. I haven't always done that. I learned that the hard way is that, sometimes we choose comfort and we pay me now or pay me later. You will pay for that. But if you choose character, which is the principle-led action, irrespective of how you feel, and just do the right thing. And if you don't know what the next right thing is, just do the next thing in front of you right. And so that's I hit a wall, and that's when I got in contact with this mentor that I talk about. This guy is helping me in Texas called Joe McFadden. Shout out to Joe because he's a great guy. He gave me a series of questions to fill out. Now the questions are, low key enough, like what things are coming up from the past that you find, are causing you difficulty. Just simple enough like questions. It was all that stuff I was talking about. Spending money I didn't have, working 3 jobs, 15 commitments in the GA. I'm trying to outrun this void. Staying in work till 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, going from work straight to another job, delivering pizzas, working on the doors, whatever, training 25 teams. And remember I sent the questions on to Joe and he rang me and he said, "Why do you think you're doing these things?" I said, "Oh, my dad died and, I'm a bit lost and I'm a bit stuck." And I gave him a litany of excuses. And what he said to me next saved my life. He said, "You're doing these things because you have no character and no integrity. And you either stop doing them right now or you can go and have a conversation with someone else. Because I don't help people that doesn't have." Now, he's later said to me that he was so glad there was an ocean between us when he said it. He said that to me when I met him in Belfast. Me and Poynton. But some people say that hurt, or like they hurt your feelings. Feelings are not facts. I needed tough love in that situation. And he then educated me that I needed to start living the principles that were guiding me up to the point where my dad died. Honesty, selflessness, service, all of this stuff. I need to start living that again. And I need to start aggressively practicing it in homes, occupations, and affairs. In the family home, he's given me a task to be the least disturbed person in the room, try and inflict that lack of disturbance on people around me, and then automatically assume I'm wrong until I speak to him. No matter what it is, just automatically assume I'm wrong until I speak to him or someone else to give me a second opinion or something. I remember one time I was sharing with him that, I was getting annoyed with my wife, loading the dishwasher wrong, and the floor's not swept. And that, it's the petty things. And school bags are in the way. And again, Joe's a straight shooter. Joe just said to me, "Stop bullying your wife." He said, "If prime Mike Tyson was in your house, what would you say to him?" He'd say nothing. He'd say, "Would you like me to load the dishwasher, Mike? Let me sweep the floors, Mike."
Yeah.
So it's all a matter of perception. People say, lose my temper or something. It's just hard to pick. No, it's easy. It's very easy. You just let loose. But that's what I was doing in the family home. So he's helped me an awful lot. Then in work as well, about changing the leadership style. We don't have to be Gunnery Sergeant Hartman all the time because we know what happened to him at the end of the movie. Well, halfway through the movie, he got shot in the chest. You don't have to be that guy. You can be that guy sometimes. The one-liners have to crack. And then affairs, right? So your friendships. You need to be an example of integrity, honesty, character, organization, be approachable, all of this stuff, which is new language, tough language to learn when you're used to doing things. Change is slow. positive.
We talked about my name of the podcast, On Your Own Time, about the military aspect, and I explained to you at the start, it is a military kind of term, but time, on your own time, like living in the past, being that person at home, and like you found 10 jobs just to fill your space. Like, time is something that you'll never get back.
Yeah.
Time keeps moving, and as long as you're in your head, time will still keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's the way we do it. That's the reason I named it that, because I think it's a very interesting topic and very, very interesting name.
The only thing that stays the same and consistent is that everything changes. That's the only thing. And your time is like, I've, sitting up in my granddad's house with him now. He's not well. He's coming near the end of his life. He's 90 years of age. He's sitting in a chair. He's accepted it gracefully. And I am so lucky that I've had 38 years with that man. He's a Congo vet, retired Sergeant Major. When I joined the army, the advice he gave to me is, remember, he says, a good private things from the neck down.
Yeah.
And I said to him one Sunday, I'll never forget, I said, Larry, you wouldn't show me how to pull my boots, And he said, no, I wouldn't. But I'll inspect them on Sunday evening before you go back down.
Never lost out in Sergeant Major.
No, I loved it.
What advice would you give someone, young people today, to join the Defence Force?
Don't be afraid to volunteer for stuff. Don't be afraid to develop. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Surround yourself with good people. Best thing about the Defence Forces is its people. The worst thing about the Defence Force is its people.
Yeah.
So surround yourself with good people. There's plenty of people sitting in the locker room giving bad advice. Don't fall into that trap. Surround yourself. Pick a couple of sergeants, a couple of senior NCOs, a couple of corporals that you like how they do business. You like how they carry themselves. You like how they lead. And you take a little piece from every one of them and you start developing your character. And you participate. Like, I have a leadership philosophy, not easy to live up to at times. But we were asked to design one on our standard course a few years ago, and I sat down and gave it a bit of thought. I gave it a bit of time. It's do your job above and beyond the required standard. Lead by example. Never drive by mandate. Demand that standard from the people around you. Always lead by example, unless the mission or the task has been compromised, and sometimes you need to just hand out, buddy. Let's get this done. But above all, the guiding principle is never, ever forget what it feels like to wear 3 stars. I think if you do those things, or if you design your own kind of principles around that, you don't have to be regimental about it. It doesn't have to be a guiding thing. It just has to be, you have to be conscious that, how would I like to be approached if the tables were turned? Do you know what I mean? How would I, is there someone, because we're seeing a lot of lads that were re-enlisters at the moment, right? And they mightn't have had a great start to their career. They're coming back in now and they're brilliant bit of stuff. Degrees of enthusiasm. They're looking for jobs because they know what it's like to go back out and dip your toe in the water in civilian street. Like, in fact, there's a lot to be said for the Defence Force.
Absolutely. What do you hope your legacy will be?
I doubt that they're going to name a barracks after me. But what I would like people to say is that fellow was crazy, but he done his job. Or he was funny, grab him have one-liners or whatever, but he done his job. I would like people to say, that fella done his job. Because I think if everybody in the Defence Forces just done their job, log out, honest day's work for an honest day's pay, shine your boots, press your uniform, and answer every question with yes, based on who the person the bank is asking.
So we're going to finish off with five little questions. Okay. So, if you were arrested tomorrow, what would your family assume you done?
The rest of tomorrow, talking when I should have been listening.
What's the most useful talent you have?
Yards with a baby drop.
Right.
I play a lot of golf, which
Yeah.
I haven't talked about actually. I play a lot of.
Do you play golf?
I play golf, yeah. I got down to 11 before I broke my hand. But yeah, I'm not a great golfer, but I can hit the ball.
We'll come back to that. Think about that, okay? If you could swap lives for with anybody for 24 hours, who would it be and why?
In the current time or in the past?
Anything.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley.
Elvis.
Yeah.
And why?
Because before anyone done anything, Elvis done it. I think being Elvis, any type of Elvis, whether it was Las Vegas Elvis, I think I'd like to be the 68 comeback special Elvis for a day.
All right.
The letter suit.
What's the strangest thing you've ever spent your money on?
These are curveballs.
You're saying Temu the whole time, Temu packages.
Temu package. I have a Forrest Gump, Alabama State jersey at home, 44 Gump on the back. I wore it once. It's a dust collector.
You didn't get that on Temu, did you?
I did, yeah. Temu, yeah. So
Just see that new crazy rule, tax coming in July.
No.
They're charging €3 per item, so it's a tax coming in. So
okay.
Every item you get is going to be €3.
Well, I need to stay away from Temu package.
I'm the same, so don't worry.
Crippler for me.
So we'll both keep away from them. If your friends describe you in 3 words, what would they say? And what would they say after a few points? It doesn't really rectify to you.
What would they say after? Well, I have people that if I drank a few pints, there'll be no one talking to me if I drank a few pints. Oh.
We changed the question. If you're out with friends, so you obviously have friends that drink a few pints, okay?
Yeah.
So think of you have a best friend?
Yeah.
Okay, so think of 3 words you would best describe him after a few pints. Or him or she.
But he doesn't drink.
Oh, Jesus.
My best friend doesn't drink.
Okay, so the wife.
The wife, she's a teetotaler. But 3 words that would describe my wife when she's been drunk about 3 times in the 14 years I've been with her.
Yes.
But she's funny. She's kind. She's normal.
Okay.
Yeah. She's normal. Like the normality of my wife's existence is frightening.
Okay.
You know.
We talked about Mick McKeown, my boss. We'll get him in here. We'll get him a question here. Same kind of question. After a few points, how would you best describe him?
Mick.
He definitely doesn't buy the points anyway.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. He hasn't bought me a pint. And all the times I've been around Mick, I've never seen him change. You know, he doesn't, like, I've seen him drunk. I was at his wedding. Mick doesn't change. No, he gets slightly more jolly than he is, you know, at times. Mick is good to be around. I shared a room with Mick for 6 months in Lebanon. Looking back, it was a pleasure. The place we were, the doors would be rattling on the locker. Mick says, first day, we took off the doors. And then he was friendly with the engineer CQ and he got a couch, a 2-seater couch into our rooms. Yeah, no, Mick doesn't change. Mick is solid.
Yes, you're sending all the regiment lads over to us. We've Martin Quinn there as well.
Oh, it's 5th battery, yeah.
And then we have the CO.
Yeah. And don't forget Johnny.
Johnny Barrett. They took him back off us.
Oh, did they?
It's just that fella, he's actually a great bit of stuff.
Yeah. And that's back to, we talked about the re-enlisters, like, you know, Johnny left the time I came in. So I would have, you know, he's back in now. And yeah, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it.
Oh, he's an absolute gent.
But that's what you want.
And then we've Rory Milton.
Yeah, Rory.
He's a gunner as well.
Too, yeah.
Yes, we've second home over there, is it?
Yeah, hardly a spot for me, is there?
There is. Jesus. Mick, he's watching. Yeah. Last one. On a pizza, pineapple. Yes or no?
No way.
No. Criminal. I don't know what story. My wife, pizza, when she eats pizza, it's pineapple.
No. Criminal act. In fact, it's a chargeable offence. 168, conduct don't become.
And what's your go-to food if you had to get a takeaway? What's your go-to food?
Well, I think it's the king meal. If you go to a Chinese, chicken breast, curry.
Where would it be in Athlone?
GG. You get your chicken breast, curry sauce, egg fried rice, chips. Now, I've had the same order for 35 years. Every time I go to a Chinese, I will not order anything else. Occasionally, I'll bend and I'll order a chicken curry, egg fried rice and chips separately, and I'll put them all on one plate.
Okay.
But the king go-to meal is the full one.
Right, Nolly, we had a very interesting topic. We spent an hour and a half here just talking and very interesting stories. And I know you're a busy man, and thanks very much for joining me today. We'll touch base again, I think, in the next few episodes.
Yeah.
You're episode 3, so you're really popping my cherry. Thanks very much, buddy. Thanks very much for everything. And I wish you, actually, one more thing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Where do I see myself in 5 years' time? I see myself, risk of sounding a bit cocky, I see myself as a regiment sergeant major somewhere in the defence force. The goal when joining the defence force, my nickname in recruit training actually was Major. Now, that was because I lived in the shadow of my granddad's title a lot. I didn't know anything else about the army. I just knew my granddad was a major, and then the sergeant major at the time, John, too, he would have had great respect for granddad and would have spoke to me about, my granddad every time he met me, which the boys, when you're a recruit and no one knows anything, who's this fella? We're talking about his granddad all the time.
Yeah.
So the goal was always to reach that, to reach the rank of sergeant major. So whether that's 5 years, whether that's 10 years,
That's the goal.
I don't know. That's the goal.
That's
the goal is to get that. I have granddad's cane at home.
Would you use the cane?
I will, yeah, 100%. And let it be no secret to anyone. When you see me coming, DPM or number 1s or 2s, it'll be under my arm.
Okay. The reason I asked that question is because I asked the same question, I don't know, you probably don't remember, about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And you said to me, I will definitely be a CS or a BS somewhere in the next few years.
Yeah, and a flight sergeant. It's to say it's the equivalent of, but it's the Air Corps.
Equivalent.
Thank God the system is in place where we can move sideways, for development and stuff like that. I was travelling to Newbridge and working for Major General Tony McKenna. Occasionally I was in McKee 2 or 3 times a month. So for me to take the promotion in Ballinol was no brainer.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And now I'm 14 months a senior NCO. I've done a leadership course with the Luftwaffe in Germany, which was a savage experience. I wasn't long promoted, got selected for that. And I've done the first joint senior enlisted leaders course that was ran in the Defence Force as well, which was a tough task, I'll say it out loud, with all the commitments I had going on with Westmeath and different things. Found it very heavy academically. But look, I plowed through it, I got it done, but I would have liked to done that course with no external, no external things going on, definitely. But you see, you have to have this belief. It's back to what Jim McGuinness said to the Westmeath guys when he was talking to them last year, when Mark, we done a thing up in Donegal. Jim came in and spoke very well. I love Jim McGuinness, I think he's great. He said, hands up here who believes that Louth have more of a right to win a Leinster Championship at Westmeath. And that's not downgrade Louth. Louth are a phenomenal team. What they've done at underage level and what they're doing, as a county and how they're developing players is brilliant. But we would consider ourselves on par, and we've proven that with the rest of Leinster in regards to football and the big dogs in Leinster. So he asked that question. So you have to have that belief. And when I stood on the court steps and said, God is my witness, I'll never be back here again. And bar 3 random traffic stops in the last 15 or 16 years, I've never had an negative interaction with the Irish State Police. But when I was drinking, I was interacting with the Gardaí in Mullingar on a weekly basis.
They knew you by your first name.
100%. It was a disaster. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, fair play to you. We'll end it there, buddy, and thanks very much again. As I said, very, very interesting episode, and I wish you the best of luck. Hopefully next 5 years we'll see you as Sergeant Major somewhere.
Yes,
thanks very much.
Pressure. It's not just on match day. It's in the decisions you make at work, at home, and when nobody's watching. This is C2, Crossbars and Crosshairs. Conversations about leadership, standards, and operating under pressure in everyday life.